Let's have a look at our discussion. So I'm just really introducing today, and Shabazz is going to be running the session. Maybe a little bit of a backstory about how I met Shabazz and why he's here. So Shabazz and I met in Mexico at a Nerdio conference, right, the first time, and I heard a similar accent to mine across the room. I went and introduced myself, and Shabazz is from about 10 miles down the road from me in my hometown in Yorkshire, back in the UK. He is also a double MVP. Remind me, Shabazz, which subjects are you MVP for?
So it's enterprise mobility and recent Azure as well.
Yeah, Azure. Awesome. It's great. And to add to that set of accolades, you've also become a Nerdio valued professional, right? And so you're an MVP as well as an MVP. So it's great to have you both. Shabazz does lots and lots of YouTube content, lots of information on all those Microsoft technologies, and your site's called I Am IT Geek, if I remember correctly.
Correct, yeah, that's right.
Cool. And obviously Shabazz and I stayed in touch, and we talked about all the great AVD work we do over here in Australia, and I managed to twist his arm, stay up late at night and come and present for us. So here he is to present on the 10 ways to secure your AVD platform. Right, so I'm interested to see what you've got in there and what we can learn today. Again, just remind you all, please ask questions as we go. That's Shabazz. Is there anything you want to add in your introduction before we get into the content?
No, that's fine. It's a great introduction. Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome. Right. With that, shall we get started then?
Yeah, sure thing. So, thank you, everybody, for joining. So yeah, this whole session is around securing AVD. Before I got the last year, my second sort of award was also the security award, but I kind of I don't have that this year. So I am kind of versed in security as well around Microsoft. Now, the first thing I want to kind of touch on is, this is in no order, by the way, as well. This isn't like number one's the most important. Although IAM is probably, in my opinion, one of the most important parts of securing any sort of cloud service. I think it's important that we start off by sort of planning a strategy for your IAM. And if you think about it, identity is a sort of key to everything in the cloud. IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, it doesn't really matter. You know, without your identity, if your name's not on that list, you're not kind of getting in, essentially. You're not going to be able to get access to anything. And that's why it's important we plan how we're going to implement that. So, you know, are you going to go with sort of a cloud native, you know, Microsoft Entra user objects? If you just go to the next slide, please. So yeah, are we going to go with cloud native? Because that'll mean, you know, for example, your session host would then need to be, you know, Entra joined. Are you going to use hybrid identity? You know, therefore you're going to synchronize your Active Directory, which is normally on-premises user objects, into the cloud with Entra Connect. And that sort of brings me to the next one, which is authentication. What type of authentication are you going to use? You know, password hash, for example. You know, if you don't want that sort of reliance on your on-premises AD as much, you can go with password hash, which is more the simpler one. But if you use pass-through authentication, although that'll have more of a reliance on your, you know, your Active Directory, it also lets you integrate better and more fully with your on-premises password policies and implement things like sign-in hours. So again, it's important to plan. There's no wrong or right answer here, but it's important to plan which one of these you really want to use. And it all very much depends on your policies and kind of what you already have existing with what you go with. You could even go for federation as well. So, you know, that's where you do something like ADFS, and you know, the reason for that could be you want to incorporate a third-party MFA. And we are going to talk about MFA shortly as well. So number two, implementing robust but flexible conditional access policies. So protecting your identity is very important. Like I said, it's almost that's like your access to the front door. You need that identity to be able to access all these cool cloud services that we use, including AVD. And that makes implementing conditional access a very important area. And there's a few things I will kind of touch on and how we can protect AVD with conditional access. First one is implementing MFA. So just go to this next slide. So yeah, implementing MFA. Now, I don't really, in my opinion, this shouldn't really be on the list because it's something we should do as default. However, my own experience in the UK is that, you know, that we still have certain clients who do kind of push back on implementing MFA, and it's more not because it doesn't work, but more because the user base find it counterproductive and find it a pain to complete MFA, and it's normally in those sort of cases because they've not implemented it correctly. But really, this should be something you do by default. So protecting your AVD by implementing MFAs is a must for me. Implementing risk-based policies as well, sign-in and user base. And this will protect you against sort of your your authentication that's kind of not authorized. And configuring trusted locations as well. This allows you to block access to AVD from specific countries, as well as forcing users to complete MFA when they're outside those corporate offices. And with AVD being a solution and a platform that you can access from anywhere in the world, and you should be really able to access it from anywhere in the world. These sort of policies, the conditional access policies, become even more important. You also need to decide: are you gonna allow access from only corporate devices, or are you going to allow users from personal devices? Now, my own experience and my own opinion of that is, you should really allow access to AVD from personal devices, but there are other things you can do to protect because your data, for example. And I know people will be thinking, well, if we allow personal devices to access AVD, then what if people download data, or we're risking losing data, and we could it could be a security breach that way. But again, there are other ways you can protect your data, but still give people access to AVD from their personal devices, and that includes using stuff like purview, again, conditional access to protect, so users can't download data from within AVD and they can't copy anything. So again, it's important to kind of decide what devices are you going to allow access from.
There's interesting points, Siobhan, and something that we always talk about when we're introducing clients to AVD for the first time is to make sure that we're really clear about the fact that we can leverage that Microsoft ecosystem, MFA, and all these like risk-based and conditional access policies and things, and that it's part of like the same you would do for your Office 365 or your access in there. We're using the same platform to get that first step into AVD before we get onto the operating system, right? And I think it's important to yes, pause and think about that and how we're going to implement and understand your risk profile and how you as an organization want to start implementing them. But you've got a rich ecosystem of controls there before you even get into the operating system that you can leverage, right?
Exactly, and I know zero trust is a big thing within cloud, and implementing zero trust, and I know Microsoft do recommend you least privilege access and all that sort of stuff. But again, I think there's ways to do that, and I've been part of organizations where it's been implemented and it's been counterproductive because you've just not been able to do your job. So I think stuff like conditional access really helps you be flexible, but also secure. Like I said, by allowing people to access certain services from personal devices, but not allowing them to download any data or information.
I think it is important to plan that well, because when you said it can be counterproductive, my mind jumped to a client of ours that we were working with and was trying to achieve Essential 8 Level 3. And Essential 8 over here in Australia, mate, is from the Australian Signals Directorate, and is a set of security recommendations and things. And Level 3 just gets to the point where it's almost impossible to work. And we've got to think about the end user, right? They're not always, it depends on the organization, not always very IT literate like we are as IT professionals, right? And so it can be quite challenging for them. Anyway, long story short with that one is that we ended up being maybe 2.5 on their to secure that system for them, but it certainly wasn't all the way to Level 3 because it just became too hard for the users to use the system, right, and actually do their work.
And what happens then, Paul, is then you start getting things like shadow IT coming into the business, and people resenting stuff like MFA and resenting the IT systems, which is, you don't want that, because again, it causes people then don't want to work. All sorts happens.
I think big thing for me and always through my IT career has been that we're here in IT to usually to facilitate a business to do its job, right? And we should not be getting in the way, right? But we've got to put the right guardrails in place and secure things and make it easy for users, right? And make it safe for them. But yes, we're there to facilitate them, so we shouldn't stop them from being productive, and we certainly don't want shadow IT creeping in. Right?
Exactly. Next slide, please. So yeah, number 3, securing your virtual network. So, AVD sits on a virtual network. It's obviously a combination of IaaS and PaaS, like so infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. And in most cases, when you're within your AVD platform, you have connectivity to and from the internet. So it's vital we protect this. There's this multiple things, now that are available to do that. So RDP short path is one of them. So this is those who don't know, RDP short path is I'd say it's a relatively new feature that's coming to GA, and it's a feature that allows Azure Virtual Desktop to establish a direct sort of UDP based sort of connectivity between the Windows Remote Desktop client and your session host, and it uses a secure connection using TLS over sort of a reliable UDP between that client that you're connecting from and the session host. So again, it just adds that little bit of extra security onto your connection. Implementing Azure private DNS as well as part of your AVD solution can help secure your platform, because essentially that allows you to control your name resolution from within Azure, which removes the need for sort of custom DNS solutions that might be more skeptical to attacks. Finally, again, this is probably this is definitely a newer service, because I remember it came to GA this year, I believe, was the Azure Private Link. And this is something that allows you to link your AVD to a private, it's like over a private connective link to your other remote resources. By creating this sort of private endpoint, your traffic between your virtual network and your sort of other services remains within Microsoft's network. So you no longer need to expose your services to the public internet. So again, a very, very good. I think this is personally, I've been waiting for this service to come into GA for quite a while, because it's a really good one for clients, because that public connectivity is always a bit of a concern in my experience for clients. And I think something like Azure Private Link really does help ease those concerns. So next,
I'll just then maybe it's a good point for everybody. If you have got an existing AVD environment, it's important to stay up to date and keep looking for these new features to be able to sort of keep your environment as secure as possible and up to date, right? And I think we certainly see that a lot with our friends at Nerdio. They do bring out a heck of a lot of features at a very rapid rate, right? And you've got to constantly go back and make sure you're getting the best out of your platform, right? And configuring the right way. So it's important to stay on top of all these new developments, right? And guys, please, I'm going to flick to. Sorry, Subrasco.
Sorry, no, go on.
I was going to say, like, I'm about to flick to the next slide, but do ask questions, guys, along the way. Don't forget to pipe up if anything pops into your head. Otherwise, we're going.
Just quickly on the sort of new services stuff. Again, it's great having new features for for within your platform, stuff like that. Not all of them might be applicable to you as well. So I think, just to back what you said, Paul, it is important to review those services and see are they actually relevant for our clients, and are they actually going to improve anything? Are they going to improve the user experience, the security? Because you can never be too secure. There's going to be services coming out throughout the years that'll make you more secure and help your platform. So yeah, it's definitely about reviewing them and seeing, is it applicable to that client?
Yeah, of course. And obviously we need to make sure we go through change control and proper process and testing those things, right? Sounds good.
So number 4, enabling Microsoft to render for cloud. Now this is quite a big topic, I suppose, because there are a lot of services within this Defender for Cloud platform, especially that we can integrate with AVD. So there's obviously the Defender for Cloud identity, which you can help protect your identity to AVD. There's just go to the next slide. Yeah, it allows you to manage your vulnerabilities. So again, scanning your whole platform, your AVD platform, for any vulnerabilities, but also highlighting vulnerabilities that have kind of just been released within sort of the other clients might have picked up, because the libraries that Defender for Cloud uses, it gets information from a lot of different sources. So it's not just vulnerabilities within your platform, but these are vulnerabilities that Microsoft will have in their library that another client might have picked up, that you can see. So again, very important to manage those vulnerabilities and and protects against those, and Defender for Cloud allows you to do that. Assessing compliance, and I go through compliance again towards the end, but especially with certain industries, I've had a lot of experience recently working in government in the UK, and compliance is always a big one, especially when you're working at certain security levels, what we call in the UK official sensitive and stuff like that. Making sure AVD is compliant and continuously assessing it. Is it compliant to the industry standards as well, like HIPAA and stuff like that within the UK, is very important. Again, Defender for Cloud is always monitoring that and alerting and reporting to you as you know, as the administrator. And it allows you to then improve that security posture in AVD as well. And that last one is a constant thing. That's not something you do once and just leave it there. You always just need to keep on top of that posture and making sure the different aspects of AVD are secure. So again, Defender for Cloud will alert you if it sees an area that is not secure. So it could be something to do with an agent. It could be something to do with, you might have a session host that's been provisioned without endpoint protection. You know, you might have a VNet that's part of a AVD that's got an NSG that's not set up correctly. All these sort of stuff, Defender for Cloud will kind of alert you on, and then it'll recommend the action. You can complete that action. And again, that'll just keep that security posture in AVD at a good level and keep you secure. Next slide, please. So I just mentioned about endpoint protection. Again, this is something we do it to our laptops. You know, we all have a laptop that we use with work and normally personal. we have antivirus and endpoint protection on those. So why would we not have it for our AVD session hosts? Microsoft recommend you install an endpoint detection and response product, so like an EDR that provides sort of that advanced protection responsibility. Response capability, sorry. And they also recommend enabling threat and vulnerability management. So identifying that sort of software vulnerability that exists in your OS, which will be either Windows 10 or Windows 11, I suppose, for most clients. And in those applications as well is quite critical. And again, your sort of EDR product and your endpoint management will allow you to do that. So the last two has really been a lot around sort of vulnerability and threats to your operating systems. And I think both Defender for Cloud and installing that endpoint protection allow you to do that.
Question for you, seeing what you're experienced and what you're seeing in the UK and different sort of market and different culture and things. I'm old enough to remember when we would laugh at using a Microsoft endpoint protection product, right? And they were nowhere near good enough for what we needed in an enterprise. But today's a very different picture, right? And when I think about managing and operationally looking after an AVD environment, I'd probably sway towards using the Microsoft product more, particularly in the sort of, the multi-session sessions, because I know during our projects with clients, and we've done a lot now, like 50 or 60 plus, and one of the pain points can often be the antivirus and getting that to work and on the platform and things. Again, our friends at Nerdy often have some custom scripts that help us deal with that. But there can be some difficult antivirus products out there, and I'm starting to sway more towards that Microsoft product set, because it just makes your life easier as an operation, and it's a good product. What do you see in the UK, and what do you think?
Again, I've seen definitely more clients going towards Microsoft Defender and that sort of AV tool, because there's a few reasons for it, I suppose. Traditionally antivirus from Microsoft, they've not been known for it really. So you tended to see more third-party tools, but for a couple of reasons, I suppose. One of them is monetary, the fact that in your existing license, you have all Defender for Defender for 365 and all those sort of things. Especially with your E3 and E5 licensing, you kind of have that capability already there. So they're already licensed for it, they're paying for it, but they're not using it. So they're saving a lot of money on moving to it. And plus, because it's so in depth now, there's so much reporting analysis that comes with the Microsoft tool, Defender for Cloud, Defender for 365. That it's just there's so much information there for them to use. and it's so it's a lot more appealing than it used to be. So I'm seeing a lot more clients going towards it.
Yeah,
100%.
I don't plus that ease of operation as well, right? So that I suppose to counterbalance that, and the other argument would be that having a different security vendor in there gives you the sort of checks and balances. But when it comes to AVD and like I said, the managing images and the session hosting there, I think using the Microsoft tech just makes our lives easier, because updating it and things is much easier than some other third party like products, right? When we've got to keep it up to date and the agents, etc.
One thing I found with Microsoft in general, they're really good at integrating all their different services together. And I think with some, if you do use third-party products, sometimes it can be difficult to do that integration. So it does ease management 100%.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
So move on to number 6, enabling OS disk encryption. Now, again, a lot of the things that I'm kind of talking about, we implement these if we were like using an on-premises solution. So my question is, why should we not implement these in the cloud? So, for example, BitLocker, we'd enable that on our laptops, on our corporate laptops. AVD is essentially the same thing, but just hosted in the cloud. So enabling OS disk encryption is another must for me. And that'll obviously keep your session hosts disks safe and encrypted. So that's number 6. Yeah, and again, this is one which I unfortunately, similar to MFA, I feel like this should be a no-brainer. But again, with certain clients I've worked with in the UK, you'd be surprised how many people don't patch AVD because it's in the cloud. It's it's fine, it's protected. So I think implementing a regular patch schedule, because it's Windows 10 and Windows 11 as well, you can just have the same essential patch schedule that you have for your your laptops or your corporate devices. So another quite important one for me, implementing a regular patch schedule and making sure your session hosts are fully patched and up to date.
Yeah, it's another interesting way I say. So this should be a no-brainer, but it can, and I suppose traditionally in VDI environments, it's been quite challenging, right? Because there's like patching on top of so many applications on one image and all that sort of stuff. But I think you're right, that move to AVD gives us different tool sets and a different sort of cadence, and having the client operating system helps a heck of a lot as well. Right? So I think we need to, if you haven't already, and I would hope most of our audience has done that, it's definitely worth another look at. It's not as scary as it used to be in the old days.
And I think you've touched on it there. Traditionally, VDI has been server OS with a client OS sort of experience. So the patching that you'd have to do for it would be server patching, and again, it's not always friendly to sort of user tasks and stuff like that. The amount of times you do a patch on a server or an RDS, for example, and it'd cause issues with Office or because again, it's a server OS deep down.
Yeah.
So I think clients still remember that side of it with VDI, whereas if you look at it more as like it's like updating your laptop, then I think because it's Windows, it's the same operating system.
Yeah.
Then I think you are a lot more comfortable with it.
Well, I absolutely remember managing Citrix environments with server OS, exactly what Bob was talking about, and also probably like, because we would be trying to squeeze on-prem, try to squeeze so many users onto those resources and make leverage on the machine. We'd go with a single image, try and manage it, and you'd end up with like literally 100 applications on there, right? So that different people could get access to these apps in the business, and then you'd be scared to touch the image then because it would just break as soon as you did anything in there. So updating applications and updating and patching was hard, right? It was hard work.
And that's it. Now it's not anymore. And the image management is so easier and it's practically automated, especially with stuff like Nerdio. Application patching is so much simpler than it used to be. So again, it's not as scary as it used to be now. So I think again, this definitely needs to be more of a kind of a standard thing rather than
Yeah, like we do for our endpoints, right? We should be taking the same approach. Oh, very, very close, similar. Yeah, cool. What do you got next for us?
So configuring session host security. So this is more specific to, I suppose, your host pools and your session hosts. I've just got the next slide. Yeah, so configuring things like maximum inactive time policies and screen lock for idle sessions. So again, these are things that I would personally see you do on a corporate laptop. You know, if you so you turn around and you're talking to a colleague for like 2 minutes, your screen locks should have the same thing within AVD. If you're inactive for go on your lunch and you're not there, either disconnect or log off or whatever. These sort of policies we would have if we were using an on-premises VDI solution, like Citrix or RDS, or if we just put our laptops. I think we should, in my opinion, that helps for security. Again, this has come more from my experience in working with government agencies within the UK, where security is like of the highest importance, obviously, because a lot of the time you're working at a security level, so official sensitive and stuff like that. So yeah,
I think also, Shabazz, I think this isn't there's not a one size fits all. There isn't as we as partners and helping our clients get the AVD installed, often get asked, well, what should we do here? And there isn't one answer, right? It really depends on culture and the type of end users you got and the relationship you have with them and how they work and things. So I think it's why we and this is true of quite a few facets of AVD, and why when we finish a professional services project, we offer what's called transitional services. We stick around for 3 to 6 months to help you bed in and get this technology right. And when it comes to things like screen locks and inactive timeout policies and things, I know we've got clients in the clinical industry that really want those to be extended, because a clinician will walk from one side of the ward in the hospital to another one and then need to reconnect to their session, and you don't want to be kicking them out just because they've been idle. So there's lots of different scenarios, and you really have to sort of plan that and think about your end user experience and what it should be, right? But again, very important to put in place, because we don't want to leave it open endlessly either. So.
And I suppose the other part of this is as well, it depends on how you've educated your users. If you've educated your users to lock their screen every time they leave or whatever, then it's probably less requirement for stuff like this. But if I do see a lot of clients that don't really, something like locking your screen is not a thing. So that's why I think probably more important to implement these areas. It's been bred into me. It's been bred into me to lock my screen.
There was a certain employee at cubesys that would encourage that by offering to buy everybody drinks from your email account if you left the screen open for too long. So if you ever saw somebody walked away from their desk and left the screen open, you were buying drinks for the company. Right?
My first job in IT straight out of university, it was a support team, all full of young lads, pretty mid-20s, and some of the if you left your screen unlocked. It's nighttime here, so I could probably say it, but it's morning where you are, so I won't say it. But yeah, there's a lot choice words sent to the group and different groups. So yeah, it's best locking your screen is all I'll say.
It might be basically it's about enforcing good habits about locking the screen, so you got used to it, right? That's a good thing, definitely.
100%.
Okay.
100%. So tiered admin access. Now I felt this was important because again, it's probably more of a cloud thing rather than AVD, but I think it should be specific for AVD as well. I do recommend that you don't grant your users your admin access to virtual desktops. I know it's sometimes easier to do that, or they can, especially with maybe personal host pools where they can install software themselves and stuff like that. If you need to install software packages, use things like Intune or whatever configuration management tool you're using. But try and use like a tiered admin access, so you have different levels of admins throughout your organization, and they all have separate accounts as well to manage AVD. And users, even if you are an administrator, your user account should not be able to administer or have that sort of level of access to anything on AVD, because again, it's just another attack vector that can be used against your organization. So I think having multiple tiers of admin access is very important, and again, it's definitely for AVD.
Good discussion point as well, and in those admin access, you can of course have roles for service desks that might want to reset a session or investigate a problem with a client. They don't necessarily need that full admin. And then, of course, there's a difference between admin on the OS and the platform.
Yeah.
And so you do need to think about that and fit it into your organization and the way that you work and the different teams that you might have. They're definitely something to consider. Right?
I mean, we recently I was part of a project where we're implementing public cloud official sensitive level, and in the UK that was a massive thing earlier this year. And one of the things we did was so there was obviously there were virtual machines in Azure for their domain controllers, but we made sure the admin access to Active Directory was separate. It didn't sync with Entra Connect. I'm trying to use the correct terminology if I can, try not to say Azure AD, but that they were on premises only and they didn't sync with Azure. And again, having cloud admin accounts as well, which again don't sync, and the way that again not same as user accounts. So it's again very important. I think it just separates and separates your roles. Even goes as far as him as well. Privileged identity management, Paul. That's you talk about giving support teams access. There are occasions where they'll need elevated access, so they can request it. It can be eligible. They can request it. You can have a team of people who authorize that, and there needs to be a business reason for them to use that. So again, there's lots of services out there that can help with this sort of stuff.
The privileged access management is something we highly recommend to all our clients in Azure all the time. It's once you get used to it and you've got a good workflow around it and you got those right approval processes in place, right? And so once you've educated the staff around that, it's absolutely fantastic to be able to do that, because you not only get the restriction and your environment is safer day to day until you need that access, but you also get automatic auditing, right, of who it was accessing what when, right, and so you get this audit log that you can use in your change management processes. So it's hard to understand why you wouldn't use it, right? To be honest, right, and it's maybe you get that end user, and when I say end user, I mean admins now, right? You get that resistance first, but once you get used to it, it's a really good thing to put in place, right? And definitely recommend.
There's also the access review system as well, the service you can use or feature, I suppose, in Entra, where again you once you give you've configured PIM, you've configured all the sort of RBAC stuff. Again, it's about, I spoke about constantly reviewing your security posture. You should also continuously review access. Who has access to what services and what resources, who's got what level of access, who's got what roles assigned. And this is, again, access reviews is part of that and allows you to do that. Constantly review people's access and do they need it. In organizations, people are always moving job roles. It's quite common. You might have 1 month someone's in first line IT, they'll get promoted to second line or third line at some point. Their access might need to increase or decrease. And again, using something like access reviews allows you to constantly review that and make sure they're getting the level of access they require for their job, rather than what they don't need. Again, so helps with that attack vector.
So people might know about that service, but so that gives you reporting on who's got access where, and you can see the changes and things. So it highlights those things, makes that whole review process simpler, I would imagine.
100%, yeah.
Okay. One last thing on this tiered access, and you touched on not giving people access, particularly in those personal areas. We often get asked to help people set up a host pool around for developers, and quite a lot of our clients, particularly some of our smaller clients, actually have got overseas developers, right? And they'll have overseas access and stuff. But so what's your opinion on managing that? Because often developers need to install so many things, right, and get so many bits and pieces working. How do you tackle that one, or how have you seen that?
Again, it's a difficult one, I suppose. Again, there are certain roles that you can implement. It's about, again, I think you mentioned about reporting and auditing. If you can audit what they're doing, I think it's okay to do that. And there are certain roles, like there's a virtual machine admin or virtual machine user login roles, I think, that you can use to facilitate that. So for devs, you can give them maybe an eligible role for something like that, where they need to enable that. If they need to have admin access, they can enable that sort of virtual machine admin login role. So that elevates their login to an admin level. They have it for a certain amount of time, using something like just-in-time access, and then it gets removed. And again, you're able to audit that and report on it, so you can see, okay, I see that dev enabled that access on this day at that time, and their reason for it was ABC. And again, as long as you can audit it and report on it, I think that's okay.
Yeah, okay. It's similar to what we'd like. So we'd talk about maybe also restricting the host pool's network, right? So it can only go to dev environments and not beyond that, right? And then when you're ready to elevate the code or move the product up to the next level, then you can separate that in a different environment. And then, like you're saying, that some of that EDR stuff, when we can actually see or elevate privilege just for a little while they install things, and then remove it again on through a request process is also an alternative. So there's lots of different tools at our disposal in sort of modern environments that we probably didn't have 5-10 years ago, right? And it's much more flexible. So you do need a good strategy, right?
You touched on it earlier, Paul. We're here to facilitate, not to stop people doing stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like saying no to something. There is a solution. There's a way to facilitate that for the devs. And I think it's up to us to find that solution, be it network privileges, not locking down the network, or locking down their identity, or allowing them to have a role that allows them to do what they need to do. So it comes down to that. I don't like saying no, they can't do that, because again, it's just counterproductive. They need to do it for their job. It's an essential need for their job.
Yeah, and it's about finding that right balance between those guardrails and keeping people safe and all that sort of stuff, right? That's good. Okay, cool. Maybe on to the last one then.
Yeah. So I touched on assessing compliance earlier, but I think one thing that I've done a lot of work within sort of compliance as well. Again, doing a lot of work with government, and I think keeping devices compliant, even if they're virtual devices like AVD, is quite important. And again, that might be something like making sure that an AVD session host has endpoint management installed, as some sort of endpoint protection installed, or making sure it's encrypted, or there's lots of areas within a compliance policy you can set, and essentially your session host will need to meet those compliance requirements to be marked as compliant, or it'll block access to that session host. Again, it's just another layer of protection and keeps your VDI compliant to your organization's security policies. So I think that was one that I think is kind of overlooked with AVD. But again, these are the things that we implement on our laptops, physical devices, Windows 10, Windows 11. So why should we not do it for AVD? Is what I would say.
Yeah, that's been a common theme throughout your discussion at this point, and I think that acts back to that change now we've got in VDI. So VDI 5-10 years ago was always about that server operating system and publishing applications. Now we've got with the advent of AVD and being able to take Windows 10, Windows 11 operating systems into VDI more cohesively. I know we've had some DAS products that did that, but the way that Microsoft does that and the way that the platform works is just much easier. So we should be treating it more like the endpoint, right? So we should be like we do our laptop desktop. We should keep them on par, and I think we've got the technologies now and the capabilities to do that. Whereas that was for us as IT professionals was challenging in the past, right? It's not easy.
Very much so.
Yeah, so I think the general theme is that all this stuff some of it might seem obvious, but you're right, people don't always do that in VDI environments, and I think we can, right? Is the message, right? And we should. Right?
100%. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's all the 10 points and things. So, but I'll just pause for a second. We'll see if there's any questions from the audience there. I see that Asta, thank you, has put some information in the chat channel there about Shabazz and our content. We'll of course send around emails and make sure that all the video and things get up onto our website and join the rest of our discussion series. But maybe just to ask if there's any particular questions while we've got Shabazz here, anything we want to ask him, or even on some of these topics are just on the fringe of AVD or more about cloud platform. So feel free to ask anything. And while I'm waiting to see if any questions come through, or whether we're all shy this morning, just like to thank you again, Shabazz, for I know it's probably late over in the UK. It was lovely to have met you at the Nerdio conference and keep in touch. Yeah. And it's great that you can spend the time to come and talk to us and our audience here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's been an honour. It's been fun as well. I do like these sort of discussions where it's just kind of free flowing. So yeah, I think these webinars are great. So yeah, keep up the good work to the cubesys team.
Yeah, and of course, everybody out there, if you haven't, mate, I probably haven't come across you guys before. Aster's put in the link to your YouTube channel. I know you do lots of good content in there. I see that happening. I've got a series at the moment on SC 200 exam as well. So, or maybe that's one thing that the audience would be good to know for them, is that you do a lot of you've written some books and help with the training and certification area of Microsoft's exams as well, right?
Yeah, so I've done a book on AVD, the AZ4 140 exam, and also the information protection, which is the SC 400. So two very relevant topics to today's discussion, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Alrighty, well, I think we've got quite a shy bunch. There's a couple of thank yous coming in there, which is nice to see, guys. Thank you for sharing those thoughts. And I think if we don't have any questions, we'll call it a wrap. And by the way, Shabazz, well done. That's on time. That's I mean, you must be a bit of a pro doing these